welcome everybody to our latest Prime Target webinar. This time we're going to be talking about social media analytics for international marketers and how Prime Target leverages social media data in our platform. Our speakers today are myself. My name is Jared Stuft. I'm a data scientist at Prime Target. We have Tatiana Miron, who is the CEO of Prime Target and also a global strategy consultant, although Tatiana is having some technical issues today, so I'm not sure if she'll actually be able to join us or not. But then our moderator and wonderful business development lead is Joe Digger. Say hi, Joe. There we are.
Hi there, everyone. I'm glad you could join us. If you have any questions, try just to use the open chat there, as that's what I'll be monitoring mostly. So just make it public to everyone and we'll deal with any issues you might have. So thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Excellent. All right, so our objective for today, we're going to introduce the concept of social media data and what the role of those data are in international market selection and my specific field, which is marketing science. The key points, the key takeaways of our webinar that we're going to talk about, we're going to understand why social media is useful for market insights. We're going to learn about some quantitative tools used to analyze text data or other unstructured content. And we're also going to see how some specific companies have put social media analysis into action and improve their business. As a more lengthy introduction for myself, as I said, my name is Jared Stuft. My background is in mathematics and statistics. I have a master's degree in applied statistics from a school in Pennsylvania in the United States. My current role is I'm a data scientist at the Bose Corporation, but I'm also the lead data scientist at Prime Target. My areas of expertise are data science and engineering strategy and architecture, as well as experimental and observational study design. And my really big focus is marketing science, understanding how markets work together and how we can reach customers and understand more about them. I work with my clients globally, Prime Target clients globally, but currently I'm based out of the Boston, Massachusetts area in the United States. You can reach me LinkedIn as well as email if you have any further questions after this. Tatiana is able to join later. I'll let her talk about herself, but she is the CEO of Prime Target, and she's a global strategy consultant. She holds an MBA in global management, and she's worked and lived in France, the United States, and China. Her areas of expertise are business and corporate strategy and international strategies, and she really focuses on SMEs with international development, as well as international market selection. She has extensive international experience and currently lives in France. And if you'd like to get in touch with her, you can either email her or you can check her out on LinkedIn. Okay, so social media data is really everywhere. Most of us use it in one way or another, and many of us use it frequently and on multiple platforms. We talk about our experiences on social media. We talk about our friends. We connect with them. We engage with companies and products and industries in a very public way. In fact, if you listen to Statista, they would say that over 2.82 billion users are using at least one social media account this year, which is a 192% increase since 2010. But it's not just accounts. We're also using it quite a bit and in high volume. If you look at Twitter alone, on average, over 6,000 tweets are made every second. And finally, the average person has 7 different social media accounts at once. The important takeaway here is that it's ubiquitous. Everywhere is social media. We're all using it, and it's a really great source of information for us. Let's talk about the value of social media. What answers can we get from analyzing social media data? As a marketing scientist, I'm primarily interested in studying consumers and strategies and how to reach them in the best way. Having a good insight into what customers think helps us to shape our growth strategy on a global scale. We need to know what our existing and current markets are saying and feeling about your business and your product and your industry. But traditionally, that's a pretty difficult question to answer. But why is it so difficult? And what options are available for us to help with the problem? To understand that what the problem really is, we have to talk about some scientific things. The first is observed characteristics and latent characteristics. In scientific disciplines, we measure different data points and analyze how they relate to one another. It's a fundamental characteristic of quantitative science. Some characteristics are very easy to see and touch and measure. They're called observed characteristics because we can actually observe them. Think about physical properties such as height or countable measures such as revenue and budget. Other characteristics are less or not at all tangible. They're hidden, and we call them latent characteristics. These things represent ideas that can't exactly be measured, things like customer feelings or attitudes or dispositions. Now that we know what these two types of characteristics are, let's talk about how we can actually measure them in quantitative research. Again, we have two ways of measuring characteristics. In particular, with observed characteristics, we have two options. The first is direct measurement, and the second is indirect measurement. Direct measurement results in an exact number that describes the value. For example, if we take a room in a house, we can measure the exact dimensions with a ruler. Or if we look at transaction ledgers, we can get an exact measurement of revenue and budget. Or if we look at a scale, we can get an exact measurement of weight. However, we can also engage in indirect measurements when we use proxies as a measurement tool. For example, if we go to the doctor's office and they want to know, or they want to diagnose an illness for us, they could ask us, they can get indirect measurements of symptoms by asking things like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how severe are your symptoms today? With latent characteristics, however, there's no way to directly measure them. There's no ruler that we can put up to measure, for example, someone's opinion or someone's happiness or someone's attitude towards your product. So we can only proxy them by directly measuring other observable characteristics. For example, if you want to know how a marketing campaign affects a customer's opinion on your product, you can't directly measure that opinion, but you can proxy it by measuring, for example, conversion rates. In marketing, we're primarily interested in measuring how customers feel and what they think about your company, industry, or product. However, those feelings are a latent characteristic, as we've talked about. There's no way to directly measure it. We can't put an attitude scale up that somebody can step on and see how the exact measurement of what their attitude is. Traditionally, whenever we're trying to understand these latent characteristics, it was done through a use of survey tools that have a mix of qualitative and quantitative questions on them. Well-developed studies like these can be really time-consuming and expensive, and unless you have a well-educated survey designer on your team, the results are rarely able to give sensible quantitative insights, and more importantly, it's rare to actually be able to link them to your key performance metrics. This is where social media data comes in. Speaking directly to the customers is valuable, but it's hard to scale to thousands and hundreds of thousands of respondents. However, we know that customers use social media often as a sort of informal review system. They post about their experiences and views on companies and products and industries quite often. Social media companies know this and they monetize that feature. They make the user-generated content available via online APIs and access to databases. With access to these APIs, really, we gain access to millions of miniature pseudo interviews where those customers share their thoughts and experiences with the world. Now that we have these data gathered from customers, we want to be able to put it to use. Text data like this from for example, a tweet or a Facebook post is considered unstructured data. It doesn't have a really clear standardized organizational structure. This is in contrast to structured data, which is what most people think of whenever we use the term data. It's data that are organized into a structure like rows and columns, sort of like a spreadsheet or a database, although technically there are other structures that could be considered structured data. Methods for working with unstructured data, such as text content from social media posts, falls under the realm of a field called natural language processing, or NLP for short. Let's take a look at a few options for our social media data that we could use to analyze them. The first tool is called sentiment analysis. So with sentiment analysis, whenever we are given a text input, such as a tweet, we will output a score, a numeric score that's between -1 and 1, which reflects the degree of positivity presented by the author. If we have a score of -1 for a tweet, for example, that means that the content in that tweet has a very negative disposition. If we have a score of 1, that means it's a very positive tweet. And a score of 0 indicates that the tweet was neutral. There wasn't really a lot of positive or negative sentiment either way. Some of these sentiment analysis methods will utilize what's called a pre-created dictionary, which essentially has a huge map of words, and whether it's a positive word or a negative word, or if it modifies a positive word. For example, if it's very happy or very sad, that could alter the strength of the positivity of the words there. Other methods are called supervised methods, which means that we know for sure whether they're positive or negative, and then we actually train an artificial intelligence model to learn what the connotations are of each text piece. Typically, however, sentiment analysis doesn't delineate between a negative and a positive sentiment specifically. For example, joy and comfortable are both positive sentiments, but in a sentiment analysis, these two scores, or the scores, will not be able to differentiate between those two. Here's an example of a sentiment analysis. If we have the phrase, "I am very happy with my Chanel bag," the words "very happy," if we use a dictionary-based method, might show that happy is a positive word and that very is a multiplier to that positive sentiment. So if it was just, "I am happy with my Chanel bag," that would be a positive sentiment, but adding very happy makes a multiplier on the positive effect of happiness. There's going to be some math that I'm not going to really get into that would normalize this to make it between -1 and 1. But in this case, we might have a sentiment score of 0.75, indicating that this is a pretty positive sentiment about whatever the content is, in this case, a Chanel bag. So we have a question. Someone phrased this as SMNPS score. Would that be accurate? I'm guessing that means social media net promoter score. It's not exactly the same thing. Net promoter score, I believe, has to do with actual customer feedback, where they say, "Well, I recommend this product or this company to somebody else." In this case, we're looking only at the content of the text and whether the words used in the text have a positive or a sentiment meaning, or a positive or a negative sentiment. Moving on to the next text data method. Have given a collection of text, this is topic modeling, which is whenever we're giving a collection of text, such as tweets, we find logical groupings of latent topics or themes that are appearing among many texts. It helps us understand content at a glance from numerous texts and helps us summarize the information inside of them. And really what it helps us do is to distill the major talking points in the public social media spaces surrounding your industry or your company. Here's an example. Let's say that we are a pillow manufacturer and we're trying to understand what conversations are going on in the public social media space about pillows. Maybe you have these 4 tweets. "My new down pillow is very comfortable. Down pillows are softer compared to synthetic materials. If comfort at night is what you need, down pillows are the answer. Are synthetic pillows more expensive compared to down pillows?" If we were going to do a topic modeling analysis on these 4 tweets, we might come up with 2 different topics, latent topics. The first one being talking 50% about pillows, 20% about down material, 20% about synthetic, and 10% about comparing. In this case, we'd have to do a little bit of a manual analysis to really understand what that topic is. But it's kind of clear that the first topic is comparing synthetic pillows to down pillows. The second topic is a third pillow, a third down, and a third comfort. Again, manual analysis would be needed to say what exactly this topic is referring to, but we can probably see that it's talking about comfort, the comfort level of the down pillows. The third and final method that we'll talk about today is called semantic analysis. It's a little similar to topic analysis and topic modeling, but it has some important differences. Semantic analysis is when we see how the contents of a text relate to one another. We find word associations and semantic links between terms, which could identify writing styles or features of writing styles. It helps us not just analyze what people are saying about your brand or how your competitors are positioning themselves, but also how they phrase their rhetoric. It can also be used as a utility to help search for content that presents a certain connotation for research. I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. Here's another example, again, using our down pillow factory. If we have similar tweets, "My new down pillow is very comfortable. Down pillows are softer compared to synthetic materials. If comfort at night is what you need, down pillows are the answer. Are synthetic pillows more expensive compared to down pillows? And what does a down pillow cost?" A semantic analysis model might be able to say, okay, in these first 3 tweets, we have the words comfortable and softer and comfort. And we think that all these words relate to pillow comfort. The last 2 sentences, or last 2 tweets, we have the words expensive and cost. And a semantic analysis would be able to infer that these 2 words are linked with pillow cost. The value of this is that if we have a database of social media texts or tweets, for example, we might be able to say, give us tweets that are related to cost of perfume in France, for example. Rather than just looking for the keywords cost of perfume in France, we might be able to actually find tweets that don't just include those keywords, but are still semantically linked to the idea of cost. I'd like to walk you through a couple case studies from outside companies aside from Prime Target and how they've used social media analysis for business value. The first thing we'll talk about is Barclays. If you're not familiar with Barclays, it's a banking institution, and they released an app called Ping It. If you're not familiar with Ping It, it's a peer-to-peer money transfer app similar to Venmo, where Barclays account holders can send money and transfer money between other people on their friends list. Once they launched that in the following days post-launch, they leveraged social media data to gather informal feedback from their customers and then actioned on it to improve their product. How did they do it? Barclays collected the user-generated content from social media platforms that contained keywords relevant to their Ping It app and the company. They then leveraged a social media company called Sentiment Metrics and produced a sentiment analysis on the resulting content about their Ping It app. And you can see this chart is directly from that analysis. In this case, if they said maybe we had 1,000 tweets, for example, most of them would have a neutral sentiment. The next largest part would be positive sentiment around the product. And then the last small chunk is still negative tweets or negative social media content. Then they dug into the small amount of negative social media content to find out what consumers didn't like. Dave Birch, for example, found that he wanted to send money to his children, but it didn't work because currently at the time, the Ping It app did not allow people under 18 to transfer money, even if they were already Barclays customers. And they found that other parents also had the same problem. Within a week, they had opened the platform up to 16 and 17-year-olds to alleviate these customer complaints. But it's not just about negative tweets. They also looked at positive tweets to find out what consumers liked about their product. They noticed that some customers, such as Matt Bryan, thought that being able to check their balances on a matter of seconds with their home screen was a wonderful feature, even though that's not what the Ping It app was meant to do. So what Barclays did then was create some spin-off apps to fulfill that need in the market, rather than just push all the features into the Ping It app. The next case study I'd like to talk you through is for a company called H&M. If you're not familiar with H&M, it's a clothing retailer. I know they operate at least in the United States, but I'm sure they're a global brand as well. And how they used social media to measure the value of a product endorsement campaign on social media. So what they did was they ran 4 new celebrity endorsement campaigns via social media platforms. So they would say, here's our clothes, and we have some celebrities, and those celebrities are going to endorse these products in social media channels. And they wanted to find a way to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns. So they leveraged the resulting social media data to find the answers that they needed. Here's how it worked. They collected the social media content in response to their different celebrity endorsements. So if it was a tweet, they might look at retweets or reply tweets. They measured the volume of the content and the sentiment of the content to understand the engagement with their endorsement campaigns. What they really found was that the endorsement success of these campaigns was dependent on the geographical region in the market. If you are familiar with our other webinar series, you might have watched our series on the Hofstede cultural differences, which talk about how cultures and customs for different markets can affect consumer response. And this was a direct action or a direct observation of that effect. What they really learned was that their endorsements either need to come from different people or use a different messaging for different markets. You wouldn't market the same way to an African market as you would to a European market, for example. What they also learned was that some markets are naturally low engagement on social media platforms, and instead they decided to use more offline campaign strategies for these markets. Finally, what I'd like to do is talk you through the Prime Target solution and how Prime Target leverages social media data. Social media data is a large part of our process in helping exporters form their global strategy. For us, it's really an indirect measure of latent customer attitudes, thoughts, and preferences towards your consumer engagement and market size. Here's our process. First, we'll collect relevant keyword phrases to your company, product, and industry, as well as your competitors. Whenever you create a Prime Target request, you submit the keywords that you think are relevant, but our team, our consultants, will curate those keywords to ensure that they're relevant to your strategy. Then we'll search for social media content that pertains to those keywords. We run a sentiment analysis algorithm on each piece of user-generated content so we can understand whether customers are generally positive or negative or neutral about the keywords that we selected. Then we also check engagement by examining content volume per market. The results are aggregated at the keyword and market level, and then we analyze them and make some conclusions based on the data. Here's an example. If we have a client that is trying to sell oils, different types of vegetable oils or virgin sesame oil or peanut oil, then we could run a sentiment analysis on tweets that contain these different keywords. And what we can see is that for French oil and hazelnut oil and walnut oil seems to have the most positive sentiment out of the three against all markets. We can see that the United States and the United Kingdom have the two largest volumes of tweets with respect to these keywords. Here, this helps us identify which product and branding was viewed most positively across all markets for the relevant keywords. Then we'll do a sentiment analysis by country, where we look at the volume of positive, neutral, and negative tweets for each country. In this case, we can see that the United Kingdom, for example, has a much larger share of neutral and less share of positive tweets compared to the United States, France, and Canada. So there's a question that says, what kind of companies you help internationally, small or large companies? I would defer to Tatiana really to answer that question in whole. Prime Target is for everyone. It's not just for small companies, it's not just for large companies. Anybody can use the platform. And we like to help everybody as well.
Yeah, I think also, Jared, we could add to that it makes it attractive for smaller companies, right? That they can go in there and do it but it also suits large companies as well, especially when they're focused on a certain region or they're focused on a certain product, okay, that they're trying to gather information on. So, as you think of a large global company, sometimes it's going to be too broad for this type of analysis, okay? But as you narrow the focus, okay, which is what we're all trying to do to some extent, a large company would fit in very well. And I've seen large companies use it for their international salespeople or international region development salespeople to watch trends, to watch markets, and to validate what their salespeople are using, for an example. If you go back a slide, maybe one more slide, go back, okay? Yeah, when we run the different types of analysis, the sentiment analysis and your target modeling, things like that, for a person to kind of get an idea of the messaging that's happening in those groups, can you use a tool like even TweetDeck or Hootsuite or something like that, where you would build columns with those hashtags just to kind of see the noise that's out there that people are doing, in a very small prototype manner? Would that make any sense for someone just to get a feel of what type of information is out there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are certainly free tools out there, or tools that have a free tier that are. I think they consider themselves to be social media aggregators, where it takes all this information and puts it into one convenient location for you. And that's certainly an option if you are just toying with the idea of social media analysis and how it can affect your business. I think it's a great place to start. As I mentioned, we can still use it. We use the sentiment analysis to help us figure out which countries are viewing, or which markets really are viewing the keywords that we choose more favorably or less favorably, and which case we can use that to make a recommendation about which markets to target for your next global strategy.
We had a couple other questions here.
How can an exporter use social media analytics for their knowledge of their future or current markets? Yeah, so it's all about market monitoring and understanding how people feel about your product or your industry or your company even. So if you are based in the United States, for example, and you have a certain product that you'd like to export and you're looking at potential markets, and maybe you've narrowed it down to 5, the court of public opinion, which is what I like to refer to social media as sometimes, you can see what people are already talking about with your industry. Even if you're not already exporting to that market and you don't have a presence there, you might not get a lot of response about your actual specific company, but you can see how your industry is trending and how people feel about your industry. For your current markets, you might be able to get a little bit more relevant information about how people are publicly speaking about your product specifically or your company specifically. Are people saying negative things about you? Are they saying positive things about you? Or are they not even really mentioning you at all? That's the information that I gained from that. And then in turn, you can adjust your strategy if you'd like to. If for example, if you have a very negative sentiment, you can adjust your strategy to try and improve that. If you find that you have low engagement, maybe that's an opportunity for you to say, well, maybe we should invest more in our social media strategy in our current markets or in our future markets.
Is there any rule of, is like Twitter the best? Is Instagram the best? Is Pinterest? What is, there's so many tools out there. What do I monitor? Okay.
Yeah. Sure. That's a really great point. My recommendation and in my experience, it's best to use as much as possible. There's going to be more or less, especially as we get into more conversations globally about data security. There's going to be a change in the field of how that information comes to us. But by and large, I would use a healthy mix of as many social media platforms as you feel are relevant to your product or your industry. If you're using something that's focused on a younger generation, for example, then you might target social media platforms that are relatively new and experiencing really large growth phase. TikTok, for example, is a new social media platform that's really popular with the latest generations. But if you are targeting, a more broad base or perhaps an older generation, then relying on what I would call the blue chip social media companies like Facebook and maybe Instagram and Twitter as well might be more relevant to your market. Do you do reports only based on social media analytics? No, of course not. Social media is a large part of our platform, but it's certainly not the only thing. We also look at global indicators of economic performance. We look at government investment per market in different sectors. We look at the number of startups, for example. We look at currency exchange rates, other measures of market stability. It's certainly not just social media, but it is a large part of our platform.
I would think that certain regions are also very influenced by certain platforms. I think Facebook is used in business outside the United States than what it is in the United States. And is that true? I mean, should I be taking a look at those things by a region also?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right that the particular platform that you are interested in, the usage and the baseline engagement for those platforms is probably going to depend on the market too, and also the industry. I can't really comment whether Facebook is better for old school business or Twitter is better for tech businesses or so on and so forth. I haven't done that research, but there's certainly going to be some biases on each platform, and that kind of goes back to understanding your market or your potential market and what your audience is, and tailoring the information that you would like to receive based on that. So there's a little bit more work on that side to do, and it's something I think that we will actively research as well.
Social media is somewhat of a noisy platform. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it sounds like analytics is a real bit part of it to kind of reduce the noise a little bit and filter through everything. How do I weight the value of it? I mean, to me, I sit there and look at it, and there's a lot of just offhand comments and a few people driving a message in a big group sometimes. Because there's some major influencers in social media. Is there any tips that maybe can weed me through that noise a little bit?
As a statistician, I focus a lot on sample sizes. And in general, as the number of responses we receive are greater, the noise, it's not that it becomes less important, but the effect it has on your perception of the results lessens a little bit. So if you have a large number of responses that you can analyze, the noise becomes a little bit less of a problem. The other thing is that you can always apply some filtering on the responses that you get. You can limit it to a certain subset of the segment that is more serious about the content that they post, or you can blacklist certain engagement or certain engagements like influencers, so as not to bias, for example. There's certainly a lot of different methods that we can use, and I can't really talk about all of them in the time that we have. But if it's an important resource to have, I'm happy to do some additional research on it, use that as a resource, and circulate that as a resource.
Tatiana joined us there. We see her there. Can we hear her, though?
Hi, Tatiana.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me? Thank you for being here for the webinar. And I tried to follow, even I couldn't hear everything. So I don't know what can I add? What kind of questions we still have to answer?
Could wrap it up for us.
Actually, what I wanted to add before we go to the closing statement is that the question was, I looked through the questions, what kind of companies we help go internationally through our services. So obviously our tools are designed to help small and medium enterprises, but we do have custom tools which we work on for larger companies. So we do work with any company who would like to study international markets and understand which are the relevant market for them to go internationally. And Jared today spoke mainly about social media analytics. Thank you, Jared, about that. So maybe I will quickly show how the platform works. It's going to take just a few minutes, but it's important for you to visualize. And I will show you what's the place of the social media analytics in our reports. So I'm going to quickly share the screen. I hope this is going to work. Just let me know if it works on your side, guys. Okay? Okay, perfect. So right now we are on the Prime Target platform. So you can see here how when the client logs in on their own space, what kind of reports and how they can consult them. So just to make the link between the presentation which Jared made right now and the reports we deliver. So the social media analytics are part of the reports from Prime Target. So here on this screen, you'll see the sample reports we made available for our clients. So if we go and consult these reports, so the social media is part of the global report which helps the companies to select the international market. So obviously the report is going to contain a ranking of the countries which we recommend to the client to go to, and social media analytics are becoming more and more important as a market research tool, and we use it for the companies to gain insights and to listen to the discussions among their clients and to watch as well their competitors. Apart from the social media analytics which were presented by Jared, you can see in our reports market size data, market sizing, the growth. You can see, I will just show you how the market size can be seen by our clients with the data and as well with projections within a few years. They can see as well information about market access with exports data and as well the taxes, the duties they will pay on the entrance in those countries. As well, they will see the country risk analysis, the exports volumes, they will see the exchange rate performance, and they will see the data about the cultural differences among the countries, and all this data is going to help them understand if the markets are relevant for them. And all these data are crucial for the decision making whether a company is going to go internationally in those particular markets. And our tools are designed to help companies take these decisions in an educated and based way and based on facts. Jared, maybe you can tell us a little bit your opinion about this method of taking the decision making, doing the decision making.
As a statistician, everything I do is backed up with numbers, and I am involved in a lot of decision-making processes for a lot of different companies. And anytime I make a recommendation for anything, whether it's marketing related or otherwise, I like to gather a variety of sources to help us understand the complete landscape of the situation and make the best informed decision that we can. So in this case, whenever you're trying to decide, your next market that you're going to, having a large variety of sources, both economic and public opinion, and so on and so forth, is extremely important.
Yes, and we have noted through various market studies that the majority of companies do not go over market selection through, analyzing the data and comparing the countries and making decision making as a very difficult process for them. So our tools are made to simplify the work of business owners and small and medium enterprises in order for them to gain as much as possible return on their investment. Because, yeah, once again, we come back to how we go internationally. We have found that an SME, small and medium enterprise, and even a large company, they are able to develop 1 and maximum 2 export markets per year. So basically, it means that if you take the decision to what market you are going to go next year, it's a decision how much time, investment you are going to put on the table. So it's important, once again, it's relevant for a company to measure their investment according to the return they expect. So our tools are going to help you to take this decision as fast as possible. As you know, we deliver these reports within 48 hours from the moment you log in the request, and based on data which is relevant for you, for your company, based on your own sector, to the products which are yours, with regards to the market access regarding your sector and your products. So everything we do, same as the social media, is directly and made individually for your company. Nothing you will have on the reports is designed for a general use. Almost everything we have are data which we get especially for your company. Okay, so excellent. Thank you for this question. So we work with Euromonitor for market size data and growth estimates, and as well we are working with Statista, which provides us data about market estimates and the growth. We have different sources, but these are the main 2 sources we are currently using for our clients. Maybe Jared, you can speak to us about Euromonitor and Statista.
Yeah, I'd also add Comtrade into the list as market size. If you're not familiar with Comtrade, it gives us a report of exports by HS codes. And if you're not familiar with HS codes, it's just a way to classify products into categories. So we can figure out each year how many leather shoes, for example, did France export to the United States, and so on and so forth. As Joe mentioned, last month's webinar was with Euromonitor, and that was a detailed overview of the data set there. Euromonitor, speaking of that, is a tool, or it's a data resource that they do their own primary research into what the current market size is for each category of products, as well as doing some forecasting out to future years and modeling that demand. I forget how many years exactly they go into the future, but I think it's around 5 years. So we can figure out what we know what the potential market size is from those resources. And then the third one was, sorry, I'm blanking real quick. Statista? Statista, right. Yeah, Statista is a pretty broad database that has a lot of different metrics in it. I would honestly recommend just Googling Statista a little bit for anybody to understand the breadth of the data there. But they use all verified sources. It gives us things similar to Euromonitor and Comtrade where we need to fill in the gaps. But we can figure out, that's for example, where I got the social media usage data, showing us what the usage of social media is over time and so on and so forth. Yeah. All 3 are really great resources for us, but not just for the prime target process, for anybody who's looking to use quantitative data to back up their decision-making process. Okay, and Cheryl, by the way, regarding the Euromonitor, one of the market research data we are getting from, we have conducted a webinar last month, so we'll send you by email. Actually, you see the link already, which is posted by Joe. Thank you, Joe. And we will send you by mail as well this link so that you can follow up on that. And you are welcome to send me an email or to Jared, and we can schedule a call and we can discuss more in details what kind of data can be used for you if needed. Once again, our tools are, as Jared described, are technological. So it's especially in terms of social media analytics, it's more than artificial intelligence. But you have to keep in mind that all these tools are powered by consultants,
which are experts in different domains. It can be industrial, it can be consumer goods, it can be healthcare, food sector. So even if we have a technological tools, they are powered and analyzed by consultants specialized in different sectors. So maybe Jared, you can, once again, I'll come back to you so that you can describe how our tools are working. How do we combine, humans and machines in our way of doing business?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, we collect a multitude of data points, both economic data, public opinion data, so on and so forth. And we, on the back end, we've sort of assigned values to those metrics as far as a positive value or a negative value. The role of a consultant is to analyze the industry and understand which of these data points are going to be more or less important for that particular company or that particular industry. If you're a company that never really touches consumers at all, you might not, for example, take social media data as a huge indicator of your potential success. But if you sell T-shirts, for example, very trendy T-shirts, then probably social media is something that you really want to leverage as a decision-making tool. So the consultant helps you to decide which metrics are more or less important for the process. And then we'll subsequently assign numeric weights to say, well, we should focus 50% on potential customer pool or potential customer pool size, and we should weight 25% on economic stability and so on and so forth. And then they also, with respect to the social media data, they help you choose the keywords or curate the keyword list to make sure that it's most relevant to your goals for this particular report, and that the results that we're going to get are actually going to be valuable to your decision-making process.
Once again, these are the software we have created and the reports you'll be receiving from us. They are taking, when we do recommendation for a company where to export, we do take into consideration all the data which is collected and chosen by the consultants to include in the reports. But as well, we do look at the size of the company, the specific of the company. Do they speak foreign languages? What is their profile? Are they an established exporter, a small beginner exporter? So all this data has to be taken into consideration. So you look at the internal resources and then you look at the external part of the company before you give recommendation and decisions. And recommendations and proposal on how to develop internationally.
I don't think our philosophy is to replace human decision making at all. It's not to replace it; it's to enhance it. We provide a way to distill all the information that's out there from an economic standpoint and a marketing standpoint, engagement standpoint, into very easy to understand chunks of information that our consultants, who are really the experts on market selection, can then analyze much quicker and much more effectively to give the recommendations to the clients.
Yes. And when we started working on the project, and I was describing to Jared that sometimes it can take a consultant up to 3 to 4 weeks to collect the data and deliver reports to our customers. Doesn't happen that anymore with our reports. We can speed up the process regarding the data collection and our reports. That's why we take 48 hours. Is that our consultants can focus on actually delivering insights, useful insights and recommendations for the companies to start their action plan abroad. So once again, to come back to what kind of companies we serve, as we said, you can see on our platform that our reports are designed mainly for small and medium enterprises. I'm talking here about our tools available. However, in terms of designing specific tools and custom tools, you can see on our website we are working with large companies and we design similar tools for their own. Just to wrap up, Joe, as you asked me to do, what I would like to say is that Prime Target is a brand new solution to help companies go internationally, well analyzed manner. So you can see that what we say is go global and go wisely. Please feel free to get in touch with us, consult our website, consult our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn channel, and you will be always be able to find out new information about international markets. Our new webinar, as Joe has said, is going to take place between 15th and 20th of December. You will be receiving an email from us with information about that. And as well, you'll be receiving an email with a link to the video so that you can replay if you have you would like to rewatch video of this webinar. I would like to thank Jared for all the contribution and his excellent presentation. Apologies for my technical issues here, and I hope to see you again on our webinars, and we wish you excellent results on international markets, and yes, go global wisely.